I'm going to give you a whole stack of theories, because one theory is a coincidence, three is a pattern, and by the time you get to the end of this, you're going to feel like the tinfoil is load-bearing. Some of these are grounded straight in the books. Some are me reading the framing of specific scenes a little too closely at 2 in the morning. And at least one of them, I fully admit, I might have made up. The fun part is that it gets harder to tell as we go, because here's the promise. By the end, I want you to look at this entire war, this gorgeous, expensive, Emmy-bait tragedy, and realize it might be the single dumbest own goal in the history of the continent. Affectionately, obviously. These are still my favorite disasters on television. But they are disasters, and I don't think the show is hiding it. I think it's practically waving at you. Let's start with the one. It's basically screaming. Viserys spends a season and a half sitting on a secret. Aegon the Conqueror had a dream. A long winter coming out of the north. The dead rising, the end of the world of men, and the belief that a Targaryen has to be on the Iron Throne to unite the realm against it. He calls it the Song of Ice and Fire. He hands it down to Rhaenyra like it's the family heirloom. Which it is, because in this family the heirloom is generational anxiety, with a dragon attached. Now watch what happens on his deathbed. He's dying. He's drugged out of his mind on milk of the poppy. He mistakes Alicent for Rhaenyra in the dark. And he starts mumbling about Aegon, the prince that was promised, uniting the realm against the cold. And Alicent, sitting there, exhausted at war with her whole life, primed for years by her father to expect exactly this, hears the name of her son. She thinks the dying king just told her, at last, that he wants Aegon on the throne. He did not. He was talking about Aegon the Conqueror, who has been dead for a century and a half, and a dream about ice zombies. But nobody in that room asks a single follow-up question. Nobody says, "Sorry, which Aegon?" Because I want to flag that there are a concerning number of Aegons in this family, and the disambiguation really matters here. She walks out of that room, and she lights the match that burns down half of Westeros. So let's be clear-eyed about what we're actually watching. The bloodiest civil war in the history of the Seven Kingdoms. Thousands dead, an entire species of dragon driven toward extinction, a dynasty gutted from the inside. Kicks off because a dying man mumbled a name, and the realm's entire political class collectively failed at reading comprehension. This is not a tragedy of ambition. It is a tragedy of nobody proofreading. Somewhere in the afterlife, Aegon the Conqueror is watching his descendants misinterpret his life's work into a bonfire, and I have to believe he is embarrassed. And I love that for them, but hold on to it, because it's about to get worse. Because a misunderstanding is only a tragedy if there was nobody around to correct it. And there was. There absolutely was. While every powerful adult in this show is chasing thrones, chasing prophecies, chasing dragons back and forth across the map like it's an away game, there is a woman sitting in the middle of King's Landing who just openly announces the future, out loud, to your face, for free. Helaena. And everyone treats her like the weird one. She talks about beasts beneath the boards. She counts her bugs. She says things that don't quite track in polite conversation. And the entire court quietly files her under. Poor thing. She's not right. Let's not seat her next to the Dornish envoy. And the whole time, the entire time, she is the single most accurate human being on the show. An eye for an eye. A son for a son. She says that before blood and cheese. Before assassins walk into her rooms and make her choose which of her children dies. She calls it cold in advance, and nobody clocks it because she's the daughter nobody listens to. And then it happens exactly, precisely, to the letter. The horror of that scene isn't just the murder. It's that on some level she already knew, because she's a dragon dreamer, and dragon dreamers don't get to enjoy surprises. She's been reading the last page of the book the whole time, and everyone keeps taking it away from her to talk about seating arrangements. So look at the pattern that's forming, because this is where it stops being funny and starts being genuinely bleak. The powerful people are acting on a prophecy they misheard. And the one person who actually holds the real thing, who is narrating upcoming events like a slightly haunted weather forecast, gets dismissed as the strange girl in the corner. Westeros had a functioning oracle, a working prophet with a 100% hit rate, and used her as set dressing. If this show has a thesis, it might just be, the truth was available, and status decided who got to be believed. Helaena had no power, so her perfect information was worthless. Otto Hightower had all the power, so his catastrophically wrong information ran the realm. That's not a fantasy problem. That's a Tuesday. Now let's go to Harrenhal, because Harrenhal is where the show quietly puts its cards on the table and dares you to notice. Alice Rivers, the witch of the haunted castle, the woman who reads Aemond like a menu, who seems to know exactly what's coming before it comes, who does not appear to age on anything resembling a normal human schedule. In the book, she flatly tells Aemond how he is going to die, where and how, and she is right. She is not guessing. She's reading ahead. And I want you to sit with the framing here, because the show is doing a thing and hoping you'll call it atmosphere. It parks its single most dangerous dragon, Aemond, a walking war crime with a sapphire where his mercy used to be, right next to a woman who can see the future, inside the one castle, in Westeros famous for being built on the kind of cursed, old, deep magic that historically produces greenseers. And you're supposed to look at that arrangement and think, nice, spooky, good for her. Here's the theory. Alice Rivers isn't reacting to the dance, she's steering it. Not with armies, with information. She feeds Aemond exactly enough foresight, exactly the right nudge, at exactly the right moment, to keep him doing precisely the things that keep the fire spreading. Everybody else in the Riverlands is scrambling, losing, improvising, dying. She is never surprised. She is, at all times, on schedule. When one person in the story is calm and everyone else is on fire, that person is not a victim of the plot. That person is a shareholder. And be honest, you've met this character before. A witch who lives suspiciously long, who whispers prophecy into the ear of a doomed prince, who seems weirdly relaxed about a war that's ruining everyone around her, and who keeps nudging events toward one specific bonfire. Different show, same job description. Westeros keeps hiring these women, keeps handing them a traumatized prince in a dark room, and keeps acting shocked, when the fire spreads exactly the way the Fire Witch implied it would. Okay, Daemon at Harrenhal. This is the beat that turns the whole thing into a closed loop, and it's the one I can't stop thinking about. When the magic of that place finally gets into Daemon's head, the show doesn't just hand him guilt trips and dead relatives and his own regrets on a loop, although it does plenty of that. It flashes forward, past the dance entirely, toward the actual end of the whole story, the winter, the army of the dead, a woman and her dragons. For a moment, House of the Dragon reaches past its own timeline and touches the ending of the show we already watched, and that recontextualizes everything, because it means the future is fixed enough that a tree can screen it for a grieving prince like a trailer. And if the future is that locked in, then the Dance of the Dragons was never actually about who deserved the throne. Rhaenyra versus Aegon is not the plot, it's a verse. The plot is the song, Ice and Fire. And these people, all of them, every character you're emotionally invested in, are just the section where the instrument gets tuned by being smashed repeatedly against a wall. Which, weirdly, means Viserys wasn't wrong to obsess over the prophecy. He was just wrong about the timeline and about the job. He thought his job was protecting the realm by getting the right Targaryen onto the chair. But look at what the prophecy actually needed from this generation. It didn't need a winner, it needed a cull. It needed most of them dead, and the dragons gone, so the board could be reset for a girl who wouldn't be born for a century and a half. Viserys was handed the family mission, and the real mission, in the fine print, was, please thin yourselves out and dispose of the dragons responsibly. And to be fair to everyone involved, they absolutely nailed it. Ahead of schedule, under budget. A prophecy this well executed should get a performance review. Now let's assemble the big one. The one that should actually keep you up at night, because it turns a family drama into a cosmic horror story with really good production design. Zoom all the way out. What is the single most important military fact about the Long Night? The thing the entire prophecy, the entire dread of the North, everything, is built around. You beat the dead with fire. Ideally, dragon fire. In this universe, dragons are the nuclear deterrent. They are the one weapon that unambiguously works against the one enemy that ends everything. As long as House Targaryen is sitting on a full stable of them, Westeros has an answer to the apocalypse. The realm can lose 100 squabbles, and it doesn't matter, because it's still holding the fire. So ask the blunt question, what does the Dance of the Dragons actually accomplish? It burns the dragons. Not the enemy's dragons, not some of the dragons, all of them. Both sides pour their entire dragon arsenal into killing each other's in the air on purpose. until the sky is empty. The Targaryens take the single thing that makes them a superpower, the single thing that makes them relevant to the actual apocalypse the whole family prophecy is about, and they feed it, wing by wing, into a wood chipper, over a succession dispute they misheard from a dying man. And it doesn't stop with the war. By the end of the dance, the dragons are dying, dwindling, sickly, and within a couple of generations they're simply gone, extinct. For 150 years, the fire goes out of the world. So when the White Walkers finally do come, when the exact thing Aegon dreamed about actually crawls south, Westeros meets the end of everything with, what? 3 dragons. 3. Rehatched out of stone by a woman on the far side of the planet who had no idea any of this backstory existed. Because the family that spent 2 centuries specifically to keep the fire lit blew the entire arsenal on a domestic argument. Here's the theory in its full tinfoil glory. The Dance of the Dragons is the moment humanity disarms itself, completely and permanently, right before the one war it was explicitly, repeatedly warned about. And if you're the kind of viewer who suspects there might be something out there that benefits from the fire going out, call it the Great Other, call it the enemy, call it prophecy, call it plain narrative gravity. Then the dance stops looking like a tragedy at all. It starts looking like a strategy, a slow, patient, 2-generation disarmament executed flawlessly by the very people who were supposed to be the deterrent. And it worked. Ask the useful question, the one nobody in the show ever asks. Who benefits from every dragon in the world killing every other dragon in the world? Not the blacks, not the greens, not the realm, not one living person, only the thing that is afraid of fire. Let me hand you the mechanism, because this is the part where the show tells you exactly how the weapon self-destructs, and trusts you not to be paying attention. There's a line. Dragons bleed their riders' emotions. The bond runs both ways. A dragon doesn't just carry a rider, it feels them. Their rage, their grief, their recklessness, their revenge. It all flows down the bond and into a 2-ton flying flamethrower. Now look at the war you've built. It's a war run entirely on grief and revenge. A son for a son, an eye for an eye. Every move is somebody avenging the last atrocity by committing the next one. The whole thing is a spiral of wounded people making the worst possible decision while sobbing, and they're strapped to dragons that feel every bit of it. So the emotional civil war isn't just killing the people, it's poisoning the weapon. Every grief-drunk, vengeance-soaked, I don't care if I die, charge into the sky, is a rider pumping their worst instincts straight into a creature that will happily fly into another dragon's jaws to satisfy them. The dance doesn't kill the dragons by accident. It kills them through the bond, on purpose, one broken heart at a time. The war is a machine designed to convert human grief into dead dragons, and it runs beautifully, because the fuel supply is infinite. You cannot lose a Targaryen without creating 2 more people who want to die dramatically in the air. It's the most efficient disarmament program ever built, and it's powered by love. Cheerful stuff. Let me point at the people who conveniently never get blamed. The Maesters, the Citadel, the Order of Grey Men who advise every house, run every raven, educate every lord, and have, historically, textually, a real documented distaste for magic, for prophecy, and, in more than one dark corner of the lore, for dragons specifically. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you the Maesters started the dance, because they didn't need to. The Targaryens were more than capable of lighting themselves on fire without help. But ask the who benefits question one more time, and notice who ends up living in exactly the world they'd prefer. The Maesters spend centuries in a realm dominated by an unaccountable dragon-riding dynasty that answers to fire and dreams instead of to reason and grey robes. And then, over the course of a single generation, that dynasty conveniently gnaws its own arm off. The dragons vanish, magic recedes, and the men of learning are left as the calm, rational, indispensable advisors to a realm that no longer has any gods left with teeth. If you were writing the Maesters as the patient winners of the entire saga, the faction that outlasts fire by simply waiting for it to burn itself out, you would write it exactly like this. They didn't need a plot. They just needed to hand out good advice to angry people, and let the dragons do what angry people always make dragons do. The greatest trick the Citadel ever pulled was convincing Westeros that the people with all the information were just there to take notes. Here's one that reframes the emotional center of the whole show, and it's the one I'm most confident about, because you can watch it happen. The show sells you a rivalry. Rhaenyra versus Alicent. Two queens, two claims, two sides of a war. Black and green. And it's a lie, or at least it's a costume. Because when you actually watch the two of them in a room, the sept, the walls, the quiet stolen conversations, they keep reaching for the same thing. They keep almost stopping it. They understand each other better than anyone else in the story understands either of them. Left alone, in more than one scene, these two women look like they could end the war with a conversation and a long exhale. And they never get left alone. Because every time they get close, there's a man in the frame who needs the war to continue. Otto Hightower, who has been playing his daughter like an instrument since she was a teenager. Daemon, who feeds every fire he can find, because peace has no role for a man like him. A whole council of lords who have careers, lands, and identities that only exist as long as there's a war on. The conflict between Rhaenyra and Alicent is not organic. It is manufactured, maintained, and defended by the men who profit from it. And the two people it's named after are, arguably, the two people least invested in it. So, the tragedy isn't that two women hated each other into an apocalypse. The tragedy is that two women who might have prevented it were kept at each other's throats by everyone around them who couldn't survive the peace. The Dance of the Dragons isn't Rhaenyra's war or Alicent's war. It's Otto's war and Daemon's war, fought with Rhaenyra's and Alicent's names on the banners. And that's the oldest trick in the book. Get the two people who could stop you to blame each other instead. Quick one, but it's a beauty, because it makes the whole thing rhyme across two shows. Viserys has a dagger, Valyrian steel, old as the family, and when you hold it to dragon flame, words appear on the blade. The prophecy, the song of ice and fire written on steel, passed hand to hand as the great Targaryen secret. Now, fans of a certain other show will recognize that knife. It's the cat's paw dagger. The same blade a hired killer once used to try to murder a boy in his sleep. The same blade that, at the very end of everything, a girl named Arya Stark drives into the Night King and ends the long night with. So here is the actual object at the center of the entire saga. Not the Iron Throne. The throne is a chair. It's the knife. The knife carries the prophecy, survives every house that holds it, and is, in the end, the literal instrument that kills the darkness the prophecy warned about. And across two shows in 3 centuries, the theme is consistent. Everybody obsesses over the chair, and almost nobody understands the knife. The Targaryens burn a continent fighting over a seat, while the thing that actually saves the world is a foot of steel that keeps getting handed down, half forgotten, described as an heirloom, and never once recognized for what it is until a Stark girl uses it correctly. The prize they're all dying for is decorative. The prize that matters keeps getting left on a table. Let me take one thing away from you before we finish, because you've probably picked a side, and I need you to notice that the show has been gently telling you the side doesn't matter. Green or black, you picked one. Everybody does. That's the whole marketing. But run the tape. Every atrocity on one side gets matched by an atrocity on the other. A child dies here. A child dies there. A queen is humiliated. A queen is destroyed. A dragon falls. A dragon falls. The show is scrupulously, deliberately even-handed about the horror. And that even-handedness is the argument. There is no righteous side. There's the side you were introduced to first, and the side you were taught to distrust. And by the end, both of them are standing in the same wreckage, holding the same empty sky. And watch how the show shoots the throne itself. It frames the throne room in blood. It drenches the steps to the Iron Throne in red and shoots a coronation like a crime scene. It films victory, actual, on-paper victory, like a threat, like a warning, like something you should back away from slowly. The visual grammar of this series has one consistent opinion, and the opinion is, whoever wins this loses. The chair is not a prize. It's a wound with armrests, and every single person who climbs toward it is walking up a staircase the camera has already painted with their blood. This is the part that makes me laugh, because at this point the show isn't even being subtle. Look at the opening, the tapestry. Before a single scene of an episode plays, the credits are weaving the outcome. Who bleeds, who lives, whose son is already floating face down in the water before the story has told you he's in any danger at all. The blood in the weave sits behind the wrong man on purpose, telling you who survives before the plot pretends to keep it a secret. The answer is in the wallpaper, literally. They put the ending in the soft furnishings, and it fits the pattern because that's what this entire show is. The truth is available everywhere. It's in the dreams of the girl they ignore. It's in the mouth of the witch they underestimate. It's in the vision the tree gives Daemon. It's in the prophecy the king fumbled onto the wrong daughter. It's written on a dagger they keep forgetting is important. It's woven, in advance, into the opening credits. The information is not hidden. It is everywhere, constantly, for anyone willing to read the room. And every single character, with the power to act on it, looks directly at the answer. The prophet, the witch, the vision, the blade, the blood, and the weave, and decides every time to start a fire instead. Put all of it together, and the show flips inside out. The Dance of the Dragons is not a war over a throne. It's a misheard name, refereed by a court that ignored its own prophet, nudged along by a witch playing a longer game, stoked by the men who couldn't survive peace, fought under the names of two women who might have stopped it, powered by grief that poisons the very weapon everyone's fighting with. Inside a story whose ending was already fixed and already screened for one of the main characters. And its actual function, the thing it accomplishes in the grand machine of ice and fire, is to make absolutely sure that when the end of the world finally arrives, Westeros meets it almost completely unarmed. Everyone in this show thinks they're in a prestige political drama about who deserves to rule. They are not. They are the cold open of a horror story. And their whole job, the tragic, hilarious, doomed job of every character you have ever cried about in this series, is to put out the fire before the cold gets here. To disarm the one continent that had a chance, to burn the dragons, ignore the prophets, forget the knife, and hand the future 150 years of winter with no fire left to answer it. And they nailed it. Flawless execution. Not a single dragon left standing that wasn't supposed to fall. So the next time someone tells you the Dance of the Dragons is Westeros' great tragedy, go ahead and agree. It is. It's just not the tragedy they think it is. The tragedy was never that the wrong side lost. The tragedy is that everybody lost, on schedule, on message, and exactly according to a plan that not one of them ever bothered to read. If your world is now sufficiently overturned, you know the drill. Tell me down in the comments which of these theories you think is actually real, and which one I invented on a Tuesday to hit my word count. And I'll be honest with you, the true answer is yes. Drop the theory I missed while you're at it, because I know there's a better one, and I know you've got it. Like the video, subscribe if you'd like me to keep doing this to shows you love, and I'll see you in the next one, where we will, together, find something else to ruin.